Impact Award named after Wangari Maathai. It's much broader. It doesn't necessarily have to be an academic work. It can be at the intersection of tech and society, tech and activism. So, work, if you have an app that is used by a certain African community, if you are, a tech work organizer, or if you have anything related, if you are working at the intersection of democracy and technology, ethics and technology, society and technology, it can be anything as long as it intersects, education, activism, ethics, and so on and technology. So those are the three categories of awards we have. And I'll very briefly say about the process. So back in December, we called for nominations. You can nominate other people, or you can self-nominate. After we collected submissions and nominations, we then called for reviewers. We are constantly looking for reviewers, so if you could volunteer to review for next year, that would be very appreciated. Following that, the awards committee went through the submissions and nominations, kind of sifting through all those that met the criteria. And after that, we sent them for, we paired them with appropriate reviews. We sent them for reviewers. The reviewers also have a certain criteria, such as no conflict of interest. And every submission, every entry was reviewed by multiple reviewers. And after we collected the reviewers, the committee performed a meta review to kind of come to a consensus, to come to a decision about which ones are going to be awarded as winners and runner-ups. That's a very brief description of the long 8 or 9 months process. And winners are then announced. And today we will announce one of the awards, which is the Alele Williams Masters Award. And what are the prizes? So for the winners, the prize is we sponsor them to come attend the Deep Learning Indaba. And the winners will also go to the US to present their work at NeurIPS in the Black in AI workshop. There is also a prize money as for research grant or to be used for research purposes of $1,000. For the runner-ups, again, we sponsored them to come here to present, to come here to attend the conference. There is also a small grant of $500. So again, we will be sending out calls in November, December. Please keep an eye out. If you think your work is a good candidate for any of the three categories, and we might have more categories we are discussing, the committee is discussing. If you think your work is a good, suitable candidate, please submit. If you know other people who are suitable again for the awards, nominate them, spread the word, support the awards. This award is particularly sponsored by Black in AI and Mozilla Foundation, so we are thankful for that. Thank you. So just a quick shout out to Mozilla and Black in AI for sponsoring the awards. So just to say a little bit about Professor Grace Alele Williams. As you can see here, Grace Alele Williams is one of the most influential mathematicians and educators in Nigeria. She is considered as the mother of Nigerian academia. She is the first in many things. As you can see here, she's the first Nigerian woman to receive a PhD in any field. She was the first to hold a position as associate professor and so on. Her work is so influential. It's still used not just in Nigeria, in many of the African countries. And the idea behind naming these awards after these African intellectual giants is that these names should be household names, just like the way we remember Einstein or Isaac Newton. These are also names that should be household, that we should all know, that we should all aspire to, that we should all be proud of. And we name the awards in order to not only remember our intellectual giants, but also to recognize and to uplift work that aspires in their values, that uplifts their values. And yes, so the Masters Award is named after Professor Grace Alele Williams. And with that, I will announce the runner-up for the Masters Award. Yes. So, Sidil Kupa. Should we go here for...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sidil Kupa, and I am from South Africa. I work for the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory, and that's where I did my master's in astrophysics. I am really honored, and I just want to say a special thank you to the Deep Learning Indaba for recognizing my work. And it is also such a privilege to be honored under a professor who seeks learning and is a defender of education. And with this award, I will continue to do that. Thank you.
And the winner of this year's Grace Alele Williams Master's PhD Dissertation Award is Boaho Okote. Big round of applause. Should we go here? Okay, if you can come here. So Boaho is going to give us a very brief overview of his thesis that entered the competition and that won the award. So I leave the stage for him to tell us about his thesis. Thank you. Yeah, they will change the deck now. This one is moving forward. This one is moving backward. Well done.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Boaho Keteng. I'm from Botswana. For a brief background, I did a bachelor's degree in computer science and master's in computer science from the University of Botswana. First of all, I would like to be very thankful for this prestigious award. It means a lot to me to be recognized for my commitment, because I've been working very hard for our language, Setswana. I've been working on Setswana for the past 8 years, I think now. Now I think it's 8 years, yeah. So given an award like this one, it means a lot to me. I will continue working very hard for African languages. Now I was just going to give a presentation on my work, which is about tagging, Setswana complex qualificatives, and adverbs. Yeah, that's the topic. I was supervised by Dr. Malema. For this presentation, I will start with the introduction, and then I will go into Setswana part of speech, and then I'll go into tagging, try to do a high level of understanding on what I was working on. Now to the introduction. I was working on computational linguistics, which is natural language processing. Basically, we're trying to automate our natural language, which is Setswana. And in this field, there are many applications that could be done, like machine translation systems, grammar checkers, and etc. And one thing is that there have been some techniques or technologies that people are working on in this field. And the aims and objectives of this master's thesis was to detect and tag complex Setswana qualificatives and adverbs, which means that I was coming up with a tagger for Setswana. I think first I will just give a brief introduction about Setswana. Setswana is a language which is spoken in most southern districts. We have in Botswana, we have in Namibia, even in South Africa and in Zimbabwe. And it's a national language for Botswana, and it's an official language for South Africa, even in Zimbabwe. From the world data, about a total of 6.8 million people worldwide speak Setswana. With Setswana, it's being used in many fields. As you can see that in the middle there we have news media. In Botswana, they use Setswana for communication, like writing news. And then it's also being used, it's provided as a form of communication in offices and also as a subject in schools. Now let's get in Setswana parts of speech. We will start with the structure of Setswana. Setswana is formed by a noun phrase. A noun phrase, it means that we have a noun, and then this noun could be followed by a noun modifier. A noun modifier could be a qualificative, which is something that I will explain in a bit. And then we have the verb phrase. The verb phrase is a verb, and then with some complements, which could be a noun phrase or an adverb. So, which means that a verb phrase, it is a verb plus a noun phrase. In our text set, we have nouns, verbs, pronouns, adverbs, and qualificatives. And qualificatives, we mean adjectives, possessives, relatives, enumeratives, and quantitatives. Now let's go to the structure of complex qualificatives. We say that this is a complex qualificative because of its structure, the way it's structured, because it's made up of multiple words, and also it is huge in length. And the other thing that people should know about Setswana is a very open-ended language, like our sentences. The moment when I start a sentence now, I can keep adding more parts of speech. And in this regard, it ends up having a recursive structure. As I've said before, that the verb phrase could be a verb and a noun phrase, which means that a noun phrase also could have a noun and modifier which is a qualificative. And this qualificative, you can add another qualificative on top of that. So which means that when we have these different qualificatives being extended, they ended up making a complex qualificative. Here I have some examples. Yo otsatsamaeng. This one is for negation. It says, can loosely translate it to mean that who doesn't go. Yo otlatsamang, who will go. That is the second one. And we have, this is just a simple, basic qualificative. Now let's get in part of speech tagging. When you talk about part of speech tagging, we mean that we are assigning the labels in our sentence. Here we have an example of John made a bookshelf yesterday, and John, the NN means that it's a noun, then there's a verb, and then we have an adjective as yesterday. And then why we doing tagging is the reason being that we want to do language analysis or maybe come up with a grammar checker. And there are lots of issues around this, this topic, same as we can have a multifunction words, which is the case in Setswana. And also we have an issue of ambiguity, which means that as we have a noun and a noun modifier, we may have many nouns within one sentence. So it's always good to know which object are you referring to or which noun is referring to. So that might lead to some ambiguity. That's be our problem set. And here I just give a very example. It's in Setswana, which is our language. It says, we have the first sentence, it says, Monna yo urutang. That's the very first sentence. And the second sentence, it says, Monna yo rutambana. I'm extending my sentence. Monna yo rutambana. Babalelang. You can see that the first one is just Monna yo rutang. Yo rutang is a relative, which is a qualificative. And then in that relative, I decided to extend it with a noun, with the noun which is bana. And then we have Monna yo rutam bana babalelang. Because it's a noun, and a noun could be extended by a qualificative, it means that we are going to have bana babalelang. Babalelang is now another qualificative. And then we go to the fourth sentence is Monna yo rutam bana babalelang bakhosi. Now bakhosi we are referring to the children. In this case, bana, it means children. From this, we have two trees. This was part of my work. I was talking about ambiguity. We have the same one sentence, but with two different trees. The first tree, we see that we have Mosadi, which is a noun, and then Sisi is a concord, and then Yo Urutang, which means it's a rutang. It's rutang is a verb. Yo it's a relative concord, which means Yo Urutang. The whole of Yo Urutang is it's a relative. And then we have possessive there, and then we have location, which means that the whole of Yo Urutam Bana, which is it's going to be a relative. It means that we have a relative and possessive. Now, this relative and possessive, it gives you a relative. But you can also have a different structure, which from the second, we have a relative yo, and then we have a verb phrase, rootang, and then we have a possessive. And in this case, we can see that there's ambiguity, which means one of these trees is wrong. So that's the problem that we are having with these qualificatives. We have different tagging techniques. We have statisticals, which is data hungry, and we have rule-based. These ones they need expect from the language so that they can handcraft the rules. We had the hybrid where we are combining both statistical methods and rule-based methods. And there has been a lot of work that has been happening in this field with 90% of most taggers in terms of the accuracy rate. Now, this is our approach. In our approach, we're using a rule-based methodology where, first of all, we are converting our problem into pattern matching task. And with this, we identify our qualificatives in a sentence, and then from there, we convert this to patterns. Patterns, which means it's rules. And then from these rules, we come up with some regular expression files, and then we start our tagging process. This regular expression files, it has our rules there. And then this is our implementation. From our implementation, I was using the NLTQ toolkit and with the morphological analyzer, which I did for this project. And then I have the noun linking class module, which has also developed. And also I have the dictionary, which is also did. And then we have the grammatical rules, which is the one for our regex, regular expressions. And then there is our tagger. And then at the end of the day, it's going to give us a tag test. And then in this, we saw that there are still some issues which arise of ambiguity, and also we didn't exhaust our rules, which means that we needed to do more rules. And then also there were some few errors which were coming from other applications like morphological analyzers and the noun linking class. And then in conclusions, we have seen that Setswana qualificatives, they can be very rigid, which means that they can be expressed in terms of patterns because they have a general structure. And also we have seen that Setswana is actually made up of verb and noun phrase, where no matter how complex could be the sentence, but at the end of the day, you can just have a verb phrase as just in one sentence, which means, and also from this, we managed to detect and tag 452 out of 470 basics and be able to take 251 extended qualificatives, which are complex qualificatives. These are references, and before I submit my thesis, I managed to publish the work. Like you can see the Setswana parts of speech tagging. And also from this work, I managed to publish 3 papers so far. You can check them out. And also there's another paper that I'll be presenting in China in the 24th for another conference. Thank you. You can ask any questions. Questions, please. Oh, that's fine.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Eliette. coming from Cameroon. I'm working in developing a role-based machine translation in Apessium within the framework of my PhD thesis. Then I'm working in a language called Ewondo, which is a Bantu tone language. And then I'm facing, I don't know whether you deal with tones, first of all, because it's part of the issue that I'm facing within my works. Also, you say that you can have a verbs that can be a sentence as a verbal phrase. I didn't really heard how you deal with it to put the tags for each morpheme boundaries. How do you process to generate an automatic tag for such cases? Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question. First of all, you were talking about the machine translation. In one of on my ongoing project, I'm working on machine translation as well for Setswana to English and English to Setswana. But now I've started to use transformers, which needs a lot of data. But so far, I have around 40,000 sentences. Because we are still using rule-based. And with what you were asking about the boundaries, first of all, I decided to sit down and come up with sentences for each structure, for each relative, because relatives, they could be of the same structure, but I have to look for different forms of relatives. From there, I used the Python, did my own algorithm to process the language so that you could be able to extract that and come up with some regex. It's just that I didn't put the example of how the regex were looking like. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Boago. I'm afraid we don't have time for any more questions. So I would encourage attendees who would like to keep the discussion going to reach out to you in, the breaks and during the rest of the week. And for now, we shall hand over to the Ideathon session.
Thank you. We'll announce the Kambule Awards on Friday morning and the Matai Awards on Saturday morning. And see you then.
Sorry. Oh, it's on. Oh, can we switch to the Ideathon slides, please? Good morning. My name is Siobhan. I will be introducing the Ideathon today, speaking a bit about its history, what's happening at the moment, and then I have the great privilege of introducing our winning team from last year. The Ideathon was inspired by a successful implementation of a similar concept by one of our sister communities, EEML, which is the Eastern European Machine Learning Community. The goal of the Ideathon is to create a platform to scale ideas and projects born at the Indaba. It aims to facilitate collaboration across borders and find a new way to connect people with common interests. While an experiment in 2022, it was still highly successful, with 14 proposals submitted. We had 19 different African countries represented, with topics including healthcare, NLP, climate change, community development, fintech, and food self-sufficiency. We're also extremely grateful to Compute for Underrepresented Researchers Program, which generously sponsored five teams. These teams covered a broad range of topics. As you can see, we had everything from healthcare to community development and various forms of NLP. These teams have been working over the last year. We've had the great privilege of interacting with them at periods and getting updates on their progress. I'd encourage you to check out our blog. If you go to the Deep Learning Indaba website, there are a few blog posts there where you can find out more about the success of these teams. We've had amazing engagement this year, with 16 proposals accepted, all of which will be presented on Thursday. So we hope to see you at the session. Last year, all the submissions to the Ideathon were application-based. So these are applied projects that look towards solving a problem. But this year, we thought it would be nice to introduce a research track to try facilitate fundamental research ideas that can later be applied or just continue to explore the field. So we're quite pleased that we were able to receive submissions for both tracks. Again, we are extremely grateful to the Google Cure program, who will be sponsoring the winners of this year's Ideathon. We have had great success with our mentors, but I would like to put out a call. We have noticed a gap in our network. The Deep Learning Indaba mentorship program was able to support a component of the needs of the Ideathon winners, but we are still looking for support on more of the business side of things. So this includes the legal aspect, the ethics, and general questions around how to raise funds and when to start making money as a startup. So we'd encourage you to reach out and speak to us either on Slack or by the email ideathon@deeplearningindaba.com. Going forward, beyond that, there's much more to do. We are very excited about this year, and the engagement is really encouraging. So there's no reason to think that we won't be back next year. But please reach out if you have any ideas or would like to get involved. Okay, at this stage, I'd like to introduce the team from last year who has showed immense progress over the past year. This is Amatambo AI. And Amatambo AI aims to address Africa's healthcare challenges by using AI to optimize resource allocation. The initial focus has been on automating and improving staff rostering systems in hospitals. They hope this initiative can reduce waiting times, enhance healthcare outcomes, and boost staff satisfaction. The team of Sisile Kwanda, Kira, Simpiwe, and Ian formed at the Ideathon in 2022 and co-opted Brad after their successful pitch. They described the Ideathon as a serendipitous meeting of talented individuals in the African healthcare system space, systems and ML and machine learning space. Please join me in a short round of applause as I welcome them to the stage, and then I will play an introductory video.
Did you know that there are only 1.5 healthcare workers for every 1,000 patients in Africa? That's far below the WHO's recommended minimum, which is almost 3 times higher. African healthcare human resources are extremely constrained. What's more, it's all administered using old paper-based rosters.
As a medical doctor, I've experienced the staff rostering problem firsthand. I founded Amatambo AI with colleagues from health tech and machine learning in order to solve African optimization problems in healthcare. We're starting with the real core, the staff.
We've created an automated rostering platform designed for bottom-up, decentralized healthcare teams like those in Africa. It's easy to upload your specific staffing constraints on the Amatambo web-based platform and produce fair, flexible rosters within minutes, including instant statistics, saving healthcare personnel hours of time.
The Amatambo dream is to pair automated rostering with intelligent patient prediction algorithms.
We'll match the number of staff on duty to patient load dynamically to improve patient outcomes like waiting times and save even more lives.
It's time to optimize African healthcare, the Amatambo way.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
So we're going to work through a series of questions, and I'm sure the audience is really excited to hear from all of you. Kira, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened immediately after the Indaba in 2022. Did you start working immediately? And what was it like setting this up?
Yeah, so I guess we pretty much started immediately. So we had meetings in the Indaba, and since then we've had meetings basically weekly. And I mean, that's not something anyone planned before the Ideathon, so it's really like entirely because of that we started working on this. Things have changed a little bit over that time, so initially I think it can be a bit daunting and it feels like there's a lot of things to think about, and we were thinking about funding and ethics for the data that we wanted and talking to hospitals and getting mentors, and then also building a product on the side. And so kind of over time, those meetings have become a little bit more work-focused. We're a really small team, but we still have this kind of back end of all the other stuff that we need to do. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it's great that it's still going. We incorporated the company. We've done a whole lot in kind of, I think, a short time.
Yeah, amazing progress. So when we first were introduced to your team, you were known as Stimele. Why did you change your name, and what does Amatambo mean? Kwande, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So we basically felt that the name Stimela didn't summarize exactly what we're about. So Stimela is a Zulu word which means train, and we were kind of working on the pun that, we are training machine learning models, so, this is a train, Yeah, and there's also these medical clinics, which are mobile clinics, and they are set up in these train coaches, and they go to rural areas. So we had a kind of brainstorming session to think about what a new name would be, and we fell upon Amatambo AI. And what this name is based on is basically after noticing the trend of spiritual healing all over the African continent, So Amatambo are the devices that traditional healers throw on the ground to divinate and to kind of predict and diagnose what is wrong with an individual, what is wrong with the situation, and kind of tell the future. And we are trying to do exactly the same thing, but in a digital way. So that's why I think Amatambo AI is a fitting name. Also, I can add that Amatambo means bones in Zulu, which we can be taken to mean that we want to be the skeleton of African healthcare all over Africa.
Definitely.
So really optimizing healthcare the Amatambo way.
Yes, yes.
Ian, the question for you, how has mentorship played a role in your journey?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Siobhan. I think getting into Indaba and in the spirit of African machine learning, mentorship is a main theme, even for the Ideathon, and it's been super important for us in our journey as Amatambo. I think for me personally, that being my first Indaba, being surrounded by such a competent and all-rounded team meant that mentorship was a common theme for all of our meetings, and even for us as Amatambo, being part of the Indaba community, benefiting from Indaba's partners like mentors at DeepMind, as well as mentors at Google, as well as mentors from inside the deep learning community, like Charles from Benua. It was super helpful for us to help iterate and avoid all of the mistakes that an early stage startup that started as an idea would otherwise make. So yeah, I think even for this year, mentorship is going to be a big boon for everyone who participates, and I think we'll keep benefiting from Indaba's community and all of the mentorship it provides. So yeah, it's super important.
Kira, how has the product idea developed and changed since the Ideathon?
Yeah, so actually partly because of mentorship, we ended up changing our focus quite a bit. So what we pitched in the Ideathon was really the patient prediction aspect, and that kind of came because I was like from a medical background, and I really wanted to see this thing happen where I'd been on shifts many times and noticed that the number of staff on duty just didn't match the patients we were seeing. And I thought, well, like surely we can just predict this and fix it. And part of having that system requires that we have an automated rostering backend, right?
Yeah.
But at the time when we pitched, that was really kind of just an aside. And through speaking with some of our mentors, we realized that that's actually like a separate entity on its own. And while we've been waiting for kind of ethics approval, which we do finally have, to figure out the patient data side, we've been focusing really on this automated rostering backend, and we basically have that sort of sorted, we think, as an optimization framework. So that's been good, and it's been really useful to have that mentorship to help us think both in terms of things we want to do, but also like what makes sense from the business point of view and what makes sense from a practical point of view. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kwanda, I see you are listed as CTO, so that's Chief Technical Officer for those of you that aren't sure.
Yeah.
Tell us what you've been building. How have you been making use of compute, and which includes the generously sponsored Cure credits?
Yeah, so first I want to start by thanking the Indaba and the Adiathon committee for basically awarding us the credits last year. They've been immensely helpful. So the product that we pitched last year, as Kira has mentioned, was about patient predicting. So patient predicting, which is we want to understand how many patients will show up at a hospital on any given day. But our mentors basically pushed us to first develop the rostering side, which might be kind of a lower hanging fruit, and it is something that might be immediately useful and might not take that much expertise to actually put together. So that's precisely what we've been doing. So a lot of us are kind of doing machine learning in like different aspects, as you can see. And we've so far kind of put together this web app, which is kind of hosted on GCP's app engine, and people can, the idea is that doctors can log in and generate rosters at the click of a button instead of spending days or like maybe the whole week trying to develop a roster for the whole unit, right? And I don't know if I can share this yet, but I'm going to share it.
Not the name.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, one of the other things that has been long in the making is getting ethics approval to be able to use data, like from one of the hospitals in South Africa, and we got this just last week, which means that we can actually start developing this patient prediction model at last. And in the meantime, we have been doing our best to familiarize with GCP's offerings, in the way of hosting machine learning models and deploying them. Yeah.
Amazing. Ian, I'll direct this one at you. So just looking at your bios, there's quite a lot going on, including Amatambo. How do you juggle work and study commitments with Amatambo?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as machine learning people, and especially as people who are running multiple startups, working on machine learning careers and doing research, something that's important for maintaining everything on the same level is momentum. So like Kira mentioned, it wasn't definitely premeditated, but regular meetings where we could support each other and touch base on all of the things that we're working on, as well as be aligned on all of the things that we need to prioritize so that you know when to double down on something and when to back up. It's been a very good metric, a very good rule of thumb to anecdotally not drop the ball. So I think being part of a strong team that meets regularly and that supports each other is good, but momentum is really key. So I think how to not drop the ball is definitely just momentum. Yeah.
Momentum is all you need.
Momentum is all you need.
Precisely.
Kwanda, just to circle back to a point you made previously about ethics and the data that you can now use, do you have any concerns about the type of data that you need?
No, but that doesn't mean that the ethics committee does not, right? So the kind of data that we're looking for is kind of the data that logs when people arrive at the hospital, and kind of basically the waiting times, the time people spend waiting in the rooms at hospitals to basically be seen by a doctor, and also the case severity, right? So to understand if, so effectively when people report to the hospital, they need to be classified according to some triaging system, whether like this is a severe case, kind of, or something that is light. So that would be very useful data for us to understand, basically for the model that we want to build, we need to know kind of the seasonality in when to expect these cases at the hospital, and do this by using kind of social geographic factors around the hospital, you know. So things like traffic, weather, you know, that's the data that we can get by ourselves, but we don't know how the hospitals and the units, like the trauma units, the A&E units basically keep the statistics around when people show up, how long they spend there, and what the ailments are. So I'm not concerned at all, because this is not personally identifiable data, right? But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking extra measures to make sure that we don't violate any kind of GDPR or POPI kind of legislation. POPI is like this GDPR equivalent for South Africa. Yeah.
Thank you. Kira, what are some of the adversities you have faced to date?
I guess like quite a lot. I mean, Ian didn't say this explicitly, but like in terms of funding, we applied for like lots of different things. We've been rejected a bunch, which has been, it's kind of disheartening. I think it's quite hard when you're starting out, because I mean, we don't have like the credibility to get funds yet. So we sort of, this is part of how we had to redirect our focus. It's like really build the product and get it out there. And that's like kind of the proof of concept. We're now like finally getting into some sort of more final rounds of funding opportunities, which is really exciting. And I think, I mean, if you're kind of juggling work and school and things, then having some source of funding is really useful for trying to do things like hire interns and so on, and really make the dream a reality. So that's been a big thing. I think the other kind of big theme has sort of been balancing this, I mean, it's a health tech idea that's really like has a social good heart, and a lot of us come from really wanting that to be a social good, but we also care about sustainability really, and making a company that can keep going. And so there's a little bit of tension in trying to decide how you make your business model work so that you both are providing something that will be useful for potentially public hospitals, low resource places, but you're also sustainable from a funding point of view, and that's not always going to be through external funds. That might be through charging hospitals or individuals. And some of that, I think we've got insights from really doing like user interviews. So we interviewed like over 70 doctors to get a sense of what they want, how they make rosters. And that's some of the things that have helped us to slowly get there. But yeah, I think there's really like, there's a lot of struggles. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add. My list is long.
No, for sure. What you mentioned about trying many times and doing many iterations to get funding, clinical approval, to get hospital data. There's definitely lots of misses for the hits, and we've had a lot of those, but we are glad that we're part of a community that we can keep relying on for consistent support and forward momentum and progress. Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing I can add from a developmental perspective, trying to put together the MVP, there's a lot of learning. So, you know, you have to basically go learn what's required, right? You need to find out, okay, what do I need to put this app together? Okay, there's a feature that we want, never done this before. What do I need to go and learn? So this is like a recurring, I won't call it an obstacle, but it's like, you know, it's something that can be challenging depending on the resources you have available to you. In my case, I suppose the challenge I will highlight is divs in HTML. They're trying to like center a div, you know, they have spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to make sure a button goes in the right place. Yeah. There's also design challenges, so making sure that things are the right colors, kind of doing UX design. I don't have any formal training in this, but you know, you kind of try your best to make sure that you're putting out something that is quality according to your own standards at least, and that something that people will be happy to use. Yeah. Right. So I will report that the same doctors Kira mentioned earlier on have indicated that they'd like to try MVP, and we're planning on using them. To understand if the way that we've implemented our first product is actually useful to them, or if there's ways that we're supposed to change them, because at the end of the day, you know, the client is always right. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. It's sometimes humbling to hear that, you know, or just helpful to know that we're not struggling alone.
For sure.
In the funding search was a common theme in the challenges. Do you have perhaps any successes to share there, or any other news?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think most of our success is just that we've learned all of the things that we shouldn't do. We've gone through the loops with
in like any other startup, we've incorporated, we've ironed out all of the details we need to try and monetize the product, as well as keeping in mind the social good that we plan to impact in South Africa. And yeah, I think we, like Kira said, despite all of the misses, we've gotten to the finalist stage of some pretty promising funding opportunities that will probably be made public in a short while. I think the press release is today. So yeah, keep tags on Amatambo AI, and the announcement is coming. The announcement is coming in a short while. If this was an Apple press release, I would have said one more thing, and it would have popped up on the screen. But yeah, we definitely, despite all of the things that we've learned, we've had resounding success in the past few weeks, and that is going to be made public in a short while. But yes, we've learned lots of things, and we hope to keep applying them and keep imparting them and paying them back into the community for the people who do the Ideathon this year.
Yeah, and to add onto that, momentum.
Momentum for sure.
Yeah.
So, Kwande, what does the future look like for Amatambo AI?
More building, more, expanding. So at the moment, like I said earlier, we've been able to put together the first product, which is an automated rostering platform. This just puts together some tools in constraint optimization and some Python packages together. But the AI bit, that's what's coming, because like I said, we got the ethics approval going, and we're going to be kind of sitting down and trying to, analyze the data, probably clean it, like spend a lot of time cleaning that.
Yeah.
But, and then, we don't really know exactly what the thing we're building is going to look like, which is something that I've also had to learn, but this is what we're going to start doing. And then we also are looking to expand the team. So if you are interested you can come talk to us, and then at a later stage, when we do have the resources, we'll definitely pull you on board. Yeah,
for sure.
Fantastic. So on that theme, for our final question, Kira, how can the Indaba community get involved?
Yeah, definitely. As Kwanda said, please come chat to us if this is a problem that you're interested in anywhere. We'd really be keen to hear about it. And we're sort of starting in South Africa because from the medical side, we have more sort of contacts there, but we're very keen to do this in the rest of Africa. We've noticed that, healthcare here is really bottom up, and so we think this is a really good place to be doing these kind of interventions. And then hopefully, we'd like to get people involved, internships otherwise to help us build tools, and then we're really looking for more mentorship, especially in kind of business space, startup space. So we know that there's lots of giants here in the Indaba who can help us out with that. And I guess, lastly, if anyone has some spare cash, thanks. I have to ask. But anyone who's interested, there's also some information on the Indaba page, so you can check that out. There's some videos there as well.
Yeah, we are interested in research as well. Like, this is a startup born out of the research community, so we would like to keep that arm going. If you have any research ideas that kind of are relevant to some of the projects that we're looking at, you're looking for collaboration. We are academics by trade, so come chat to us about that also. Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. One last final thing. Anything you'd like to say, round off, especially considering some people in this room have applied to this year's Ideathon. Any words of inspiration you'd like to share?
Good luck, and work hard, and you just might be the next startup that comes out of Indaba.
Yeah, just do it and get some momentum. Make sure it's something you care about.
For sure.
Yeah, I would say just do it also. The idea doesn't have to be complete.
For sure.
I think, just have a vision of what you're trying to do, have a high-level goal, and find people who will help you flesh that out.
For sure. Yeah. We all met for the first time at Indaba last year, so it's definitely possible to assemble a team and work on something that you care about, like Kira said, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone that's joined us today.
That way. Okay.
So that's it for our morning plenary. Please feel free to transition into the poster sessions or to remain here for the industry talks. Thank you.